Bola Tinubu is the Biafra we have been looking for. A man who has integrated the entire Southeast.
Yes, sir.
A man who has given us juicy appointments.
Yes, sir.
A man who has given us very important infrastructure. Bola, on your Monday we shall stand. On your Monday we shall stand. On your Monday, Bola, on your Monday, Bola, on your Monday we shall stand. Let us see a year to other presidential aspirants.
For context, let's go over it again. David Umahi, the Minister of Works, made the remark at an APC presidential primary in Ebonyi State, saying Tinubu is the Biafra we have been looking for, a man who has integrated the entire Southeast, given us juicy appointments and very important infrastructure. This is not the first time he's made this kind of claim. As far back as December 2025, Umahi had already declared that Igbos are no longer marginalized and that Biafra agitation is unjustified, crediting infrastructure projects like the Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway, the Owerri-Onitsha Expressway, Section 2B of the Second Niger Bridge, and a 123-kilometer road from Ndibe Beach to the Benue border. Umahi spoke during the APC presidential primary election in his home ward in Ebonyi State, describing Ebonyi as an APC stronghold and insisting the Southeast had benefited significantly from the current administration ahead of the 2027 general election. In plain terms, this was a campaign rally speech, not a neutral assessment of Igbo welfare. That alone should inform how heavily you weigh it. He explicitly called on the people of the Southeast to give massive support to Tinubu's re-election bid in the 2027 general elections. So the statement is transactional. It's designed to mobilize Igbo votes for Tinubu, not to address Igbo grievances in any comprehensive way. Now let's break this down. Let's break down the claim. Let's break down the claim. Number one, he said Tinubu has integrated the entire Southeast. There's a degree of truth here in the narrow political sense. Tinubu has appointed some Igbo figures into federal roles, and some infrastructure work is ongoing in the region. But integration is not the same as equity. It's not the same as equity. The Southeast remains the only geopolitical zone without a major seaport, without a functional international airport of global standard, and critically, still excluded from the highest office of the land. Political appointments, while symbolically meaningful, do not restructure power in ways that give the Igbo people structural, constitutional, or economic equity. Real integration would mean the Igbo zone having commanding influence over national decisions, not just occupying ministerial seats at the pleasure of a president from another region. Point two, juicy. He also said he gave the Igbos juicy appointments. Appointments are real, but they are patronage, not power. When a group receives appointments from a ruler rather than producing the ruler itself, that is clientelism, not integration. The Igbo people's historical demand has never simply been to be given positions. It has been to have the organic right to compete for the presidency of Nigeria, which was denied them in 2023 in deeply controversial circumstances, framing ministerial appointments as the fulfillment of Biafra, a demand rooted in the trauma of war, genocide, and decades of exclusion, reduces an enormous civilizational aspiration to a handful of government jobs. He also said Tinubu has given the Igbos very important infrastructure. Umahi acknowledged that many of these projects had stalled for more than a decade before the Tinubu administration intervened. and highlighted that the federal government is prioritizing durable concrete roads designed to last between 50 and 100 years. Infrastructure investment in the southeast is generally overdue, and if completed, would benefit ordinary Igbo people. Better roads mean commerce, mobility, and economic activity. This is the most substantive part of Umai's claims. However, infrastructure is a constitutional duty of every federal government, not a favor. Completing roads that were abandoned for 15 years is not generosity, it is the minimum obligation of governance. Now, does what Umai said benefit the Igbos? Let's look briefly into that. Let's look briefly. The only few things that seem to benefit the Igbos here is the completed road infrastructure, second Niger bridge extension, Owerri Onitsha road, etc. Has real economic value. It facilitates trade, reduces transport costs, and connects communities. Then federal appointments. If those appointees actually use their positions to channel resources and advocate for the zone, can produce real dividends. Now, what does not benefit Igbos in any deep sense? There are the things that benefit the Igbos in that statement, in that broader sense, is very few compared to the things that does not benefit the Igbos. Now, let's look into some. Describing Tinubu as the Biafra Describing Tinubu as the Biafra the Igbos have been looking for is an insult to the depth of the Biafra idea. Biafra, whatever one thinks of it, represents the aspiration of a people to self-determination, dignity, and freedom from structural violence, not roads and appointments. Then it effectively tells the Igbo people to stop aspiring to the presidency, to stop demanding equity, and to settle for being beneficiaries rather than sovereign participants. Then it narrows Igbo identity and political ambition into the framework of what another group's leader choose to give them. Umai does not speak in a vacuum. A coalition of pan-Igbo self-determination activists, the American veterans of Igbo descent, ambassadors for self-determination, and Rising Sun Foundation responded in a joint statement saying Dave Umai does not speak for Ndi Igbo, he does not speak for Ala Igbo, he does not speak for Biafra land. He speaks only for himself and not even for everyone in Ebonyi state. The activists also described his claim that Igbos are no longer marginalized as an insult to the sensibilities of the people. This is significant because it exposes the legitimacy gap in Umai's statement. He holds a federal appointment. He is Minister of Works under Tinubu. His political survival depends on Tinubu's goodwill. It is therefore structurally impossible for him to be an independent voice on whether Tinubu has truly served the Igbo interest. He is both judge and party. Then let's look briefly in what Biafra is really about. What is Biafra really about? The Biafra agitation, whatever its current form, is rooted in a civil war that killed between 1 and 3 million people, mostly Igbo, through combat, starvation, and blockade. It is a wound that has never been formally addressed by the Nigerian state through the truth, reconciliation, or reparation. Reducing that aspiration to roads and appointments is not just intellectually dishonest, it can actively delay the genuine healing and political restructuring Nigeria needs. The Igbo people's question has always been, can we as a people be president of Nigeria without the system being rigged against us? That question remains unanswered until it is. No infrastructure project, however massive, constitutes Biafra. In closing, Umai's statement is politically motivated, partially factual, but fundamentally misleading. The infrastructure projects have real value. The appointments carry some benefit, but equating all of that with Biafra and urging Igbos to abandon their deepest political aspiration in exchange serves Tinubu's 2027 election campaign far more than it serves the Igbo people. It is the language of a man who was appointed by the president he is now praising, and that context cannot be separated from the content of what he said. Thank you for listening. Drop your comments, your views, share and like. What especially if you are Igbo, what do you think about this? You can also further educate us in the comment section what you think. Thank you.